and had now changed into Krishna. Whereas Yasoda was not able to understand what kind of child had been born to her. Yasoda was such an advanced devotee that she never regarded Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but simply loved him as her own child. Devaki, however, knew from the very beginning that although Krishna was her son, he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Vrindavana, no one regarded Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When something very wonderful happened because of Krishna's activities, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, the cowherd men, the cowherd boys, Nanda Maharaj, Yasoda, and the others were surprised. For they never considered their son Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes they suggested that some great demigod had appeared there as Krishna. In such an exalted status of devotional service, a devotee forgets the position of Krishna and intensely loves the Supreme Personality of Godhead without understanding his position. This is called Kevala Bhakti and is distinct from the stages of Jnana and Jnana Mayi Bhakti. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the 10th canto, 3rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Birth of Lord Krishna, Harivilas. Now we go to chapter 4, the atrocities of the king Kamsa. This chapter describes how Kamsa, following the advice of his demoniac friends, considered the persecution of small children to be very diplomatic. The prison house closed by the influence of Yogamaya, who then began crying as a newborn child. This crying awakened the doorkeeper, who immediately informed Kamsa that a child had been born to Devaki. Upon hearing this news, Kamsa appeared with great force in the maternity room, and in spite of Devaki's pleas that the child be saved, the demon forcibly snatched the child from Devaki's hands and dashed the child against a rock. Wow, terrible. Unfortunately for Kamsa, the newborn child slipped away from his hands, rose up its head, and appeared as the 8-armed form of Durga. Wow. Durga then told Kamsa, "The enemy you contemplate has taken birth somewhere else. Therefore, your plan to persecute all the children will prove futile." According to the prophecy, the 8th child of Devaki would kill Kamsa, and therefore, when Kamsa saw that the 8th child was a female and heard that his so-called enemy had taken birth elsewhere, he was struck with wonder. He decided to release Devaki and Vasudeva, and he admitted before them the wrongness of his atrocity. Falling at the feet of Devaki and Vasudeva. He begged their pardon and tried to convince them that because the events had taken place were destined to happen, they should not be unhappy for his having killed so many of their children. Oh, it's terrible. Devaki and Vasudeva, being naturally very pious, immediately excused Kamsa for his atrocities. And Kamsa, after seeing that his sister and brother-in-law were happy, returned to his home. After the night passed, however, Kamsa called for his ministers and informed them of all that had happened. The ministers, who were all demons, advised Kamsa that because his enemy had already taken birth somewhere else, all the children born within the past 10 days in the villages within Kamsa's kingdom should be killed. Although the demigods always feared Kamsa, they should not be treated leniently, since they were enemies. Kamsa should try his best to uproot their existence. The demoniac ministers further advised that Kamsa and the demons continue their enmity toward Vishnu, because Vishnu is the original person amongst all the demigods. The Brahmanas, the cows, the Vedas, austerity, truthfulness, control of the senses and mind, faithfulness, and mercy are among the different parts of the body of Vishnu, who is the origin of all the demigods, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Therefore, the ministers advised the demigods, the saintly persons, the cows, and the brahmanas should be systematically persecuted. Strongly advised in this way by his friends, the demoniac ministers, Kamsa approved of their instructions and considered it beneficial to be envious of the brahmanas. Following Kamsa's orders, therefore, the demons began committing their atrocities all over Rajabhumi. Wow, this is like really horrible. Text 1. Sukadeva Goswami continued, my dear king, Parikshit, the doors inside and outside the house closed as before. Thereafter, the inhabitants of the house, especially the watchmen, heard the crying of the newborn child, and thus awakened from their beds. Report by Srila Prabhupada. The activities of Yogamaya are distinctly visible in this chapter, in which Devaki and Vasudeva excused Kamsa for his many devious, uh, devious, atrocious activities, and Kamsa becomes repentant and falls at their feet. Before the awakening of watchmen and the others in the prison house, many other things happened. Krishna was born and transferred to the home of Yasoda in Gokula. The strong doors opened and again closed, and Vasudeva assumed his former condition of being shackled. The watchmen, however, could not understand all this. They awakened only when they heard the crying of the newborn child, Yogamaya. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura has remarked that the watchmen were just like dogs. At night, the dogs in the street act like watchmen. If one dog barks, many other dogs immediately follow it by barking. Although the street dogs are not appointed by anyone to act as watchmen, they think they are responsible for protecting the neighborhood. And as soon as someone unknown enters it, they all begin to bark. Both Yogamaya and Mahamaya act in all uh, material activities. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasa. But although the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead acts under the Supreme Lord's direction, Maya Dakshina Prakriti Surite Sacharacharam, dog-like watchmen such as politicians and diplomats think that they are protecting their neighborhoods from the dangers of the outside world. These are the actions of Maya. But one who surrenders to Krishna is relieved of the protection afforded by the dogs and dog-like guardians of this material world. Text number 2. Thereafter, all the watchmen very quickly approached King Kamsa, the ruler of the Bhoja dynasty, and submitted the news of the birth of Devaki's child. Kamsa, who had awaited this news very anxiously, immediately took action. Purport: Kamsa was very anxiously waiting because of the prophecy that the eighth child of Devaki would kill him. This time, naturally, he was awake and waiting, and when the watchman approached him, he immediately took action to kill the child. Text number 3. Kamsa immediately got up from bed, thinking, here is Kala, the supreme time factor, which has taken birth to kill me. Thus overwhelmed, Kamsa, his hair scattered on his head, at once approached the place where the child had been born. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Kala is significant. Although the child was born to kill Kamsa, Kamsa thought that this was the proper time to kill the child so that he himself would be saved. Kala is actually another name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he appears only for the purpose of killing. When Arjuna inquired from Krishna in his universal form, who are you? The Lord presented himself as Kala, death personified, to kill. By nature's law, when there is an unwanted increase in population, Kala appears, and by some arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, people are killed wholesale in different ways by war, pestilence, famine, and so on. At that time, even atheistic political leaders go to a church, mosque, or temple for protection by God or gods and submissively say, God willing. Before that, They pay no attention to God, not caring to know God or His will. But when Kala appears, they say, God willing. Death is but another feature of the Supreme Kala, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the time of death, the atheist must submit to this Supreme Kala, and then the Supreme Personality of Godhead takes away all his possessions. Mrityu sarvaharas chaham, and forces him to accept another body. Tata dehantara prapti. This the atheists do not know. And if they do know, they neglect it so that they may go on with their normal life. The Krishna conscious movement is trying to teach them that although for a few years one may act as a great protector or great watchman with the appearance of Kala, death, one must take another body by the laws of nature. Not knowing this, they unnecessarily waste their time in their occupation as watchdogs and do not try to get the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As it is clearly said, Aprapya mam nivartam te mrityu samsara vartamani. Without Krishna consciousness, one is condemned to continue wandering in birth and death, not knowing what will happen in one's next birth. Text 4. Devaki helplessly, piteously appealed to Kamsa. My dear brother, all good fortune unto you. Don't kill this girl. She will be your daughter-in-law. Indeed, it is unworthy of you to kill a woman. Kamsa had previously excused Devaki because he thought that a woman should not be killed, especially when pregnant. But now, by the influence of Maya, he was prepared to kill a woman. Not only a woman, but a small, helpless, newborn child. Devaki wanted to save her brother from this terrible, sinful act. Therefore, she told him, don't be so atrocious as to kill a female child. Let there be all good fortune for you. Demons can do anything for their personal benefit, not considering what is pious or vicious. But Devaki, on the contrary, although safe, because she had already given birth to her own son, Krishna, was anxious to save the daughter of someone else. This was natural for her. Text 5. My dear brother, by the influence of destiny, you have already killed many babies, each of them as bright and beautiful as fire. But kindly spare this daughter. Give her to me as your gift. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here we see that Devaki first focused Kamsa's attention on his atrocities, uh, his, uh, uh, his atrocious activities, his killing of her many sons. Then she wanted to compromise with him by saying that whatever he had done was not his fault, but was ordained by destiny. Then she appealed to him to give her the daughter as a gift. Devaki was the daughter of a Kshatriya. In politics, there are different methods of achieving success. First, repression, dhamma, then compromise, sama, and then asking for a gift, dana. Devaki first adopted the policy of repression by directly attacking Kamsa for having cruelly, atrociously killed her babies. Then she compromised by that saying that this was not his fault, and then she begged for a gift. As we learn from the history of the Mahabharata or Greater India, the wives and daughters of the ruling class, the Kshatriyas, knew the political game, but we never find that a woman was given the post of chief executive. This is in accordance with the injunctions of Manu Samhita. But unfortunately, Manu Samhita is now being insulted. And the Aryans, the members of Vedic society, cannot do anything. Such is the nature of Kali Yuga. Nothing happens unless ordained by destiny. Tasyaiva heto prayate to kovido. Na labdate yad brahmatam upari ada. Tal labdate dukad vad anyata sukam. Kalena sarvatra gabira ramasa. Bhagavatam 1.5.18. Devaki knew very well that because the killing of her many children had been ordained by destiny, Kamsa was not to be blamed. There was no need to give good instructions to Kamsa. Upadesho hi murkhanam prakopaya na samtaye Chanakya Pandita. If a foolish person is given good instructions, he becomes more and more angry. Moreover, a cruel person is more dangerous than a snake. A snake and a cruel person are both cruel, but a cruel person is more dangerous because although a snake can be charmed by mantras or subdued by herbs, a cruel person cannot be subdued by any means. Mm-hmm. Such was the nature of Kamsa. Oh boy. Text 6. My Lord, my brother, I am very poor, being bereft of all my children. But still, I am your younger sister, and therefore it would be worthy of you to give me this last child as a gift. Text 7. Sukadeva Goswami continued, piteously embracing her daughter and crying. Devaki begged Kamsa for the child, but he was so cruel that he chastised her and forcibly snatched the child from her hands. Although Devaki was crying like a very poor woman, actually she was not poor, and therefore the word used here is dinatva. She had already given birth to Krishna. Therefore, who could have been richer than she? Even the demigods had come to offer prayers to Devaki, but she played the part of a poor, piteously afflicted woman because she wanted to save the daughter of Yasoda. Text number 8. Having uprooted all the relationships with his sister because of intense selfishness, Kamsa, who was sitting on his knees, grasped the newborn child by the legs and tried to dash her head against the surface of a stone. Oh, Kamsa's really mean. Text 9. The child, Yogamaya Devi, the younger sister of Lord Vishnu, slipped upward from Kamsa's hands and appeared in the sky as Devi, the goddess Durga, with 8 arms, completely equipped with weapons. Oh my God. Purport. Kamsa tried to dash the child downward against a piece of stone. But since she was Yogamaya, the younger sister of Lord Vishnu, she slipped upward and assumed the form of the goddess Durga. The word Anuja, meaning the younger sister, is significant. When Vishnu or Krishna took birth from Devaki, he must have simultaneously taken birth from Yasoda also. Otherwise, how could Yogamaya have been Anuja, the Lord's younger sister? Text 10 and 11. The goddess Durga was decorated with flower garlands, smeared with sandalwood pulp, and dressed with excellent garments and ornaments made of valuable jewels, holding in her hands a bow, a trident, arrows, a shield, a sword, a conch shell, a disc, and a club, and being praised by celestial beings like Apsaras, Kinaras, Urajas, Siddhas, Charanas, and Gandharvas, who worshipped her with all kinds of presentations. She spoke as follows. Text number 12. O Kamsa, you fool, what will be the use of killing me, the Supreme Personality Godhead, who has been your enemy from the very beginning and who will certainly kill you, has already taken his birth somewhere else. Therefore, do not unnecessarily kill other children. Text 13. After speaking to Kamsa in this way, the goddess Durga, Yogamaya, appeared in different places, such as Varanasi, and became celebrated by different names such as Annapurna, Durga, Kali, and Bhadra. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The goddess Durga is celebrated in Calcutta as Kali, in Mumbai as Mumbadevi, in Varanasi as Annapurna, in Cuttack as Bhadrakali, and in Ahmedabad as Bhadra. Thus, in different places, she is known by different names. Her devotees are known as Shaktas, or worshippers of the enemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas worshippers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself are called Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are destined to return home back to Godhead in the spiritual world, whereas the Shaktas are destined to live within this material world to enjoy different types of material happiness. In the material world, the living entity must accept different types of bodies. Brahmayam Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudrani Mayaya. Bhagavad Gita 1861. According to the living entity's desire, Yogamaya or Maya, the goddess of Durga, gives him a particular type of body which is mentioned as yantra, a machine. But the living entities who are promoted to the spiritual world do not return to the prison house of a material body. Takvadeham punarjanma naitimam eti. So Arjuna, the words janma na eti indicate that these living entities remain in their original spiritual bodies to enjoy the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental abode Vaikuntha and Vrindavan. Text 14. After hearing the words of the goddess Durga, Kamsa was struck with wonder. Thus he approached his sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, released them immediately from their shackles, and very humbly spoke as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Kamsa was astonished because the goddess Durga had become the daughter of Devaki. Since Devaki was a human being, how could, excuse me, how could the goddess Durga become her daughter? This was one cause of his astonishment. Also, how is it that the eighth child of Devaki was female? Sorry. This also astonished him. Asuras are generally devotees of Mother Durga, Shakti, or of demigods, especially Lord Shiva. The appearance of Durga in her original eight-armed feature, holding various weapons, immediately changed Kamsa's mind about Devaki's being an ordinary human. Devaki must have had some transcendental qualities. Otherwise, why would the goddess of Durga have taken birth from her womb? Under the circumstances, Kamsa, struck with wonder, wanted to compensate for his atrocities against his sister Devaki. Now he has a second thought. Uh, Text 15. Alas, my sister, alas, my brother-in-law, I am indeed so sinful that exactly like a man-eater, Rakshasa, who eats his own child, I have killed so many sons born of you. Because Rakshasas are understood to be accustomed to eating their own sons, oh my God, as snakes and many other animals sometimes do. At the present moment in Kali Yuga, Rakshasa fathers and mothers are killing their own children in the womb, and some are even eating the fetus with great relish. Thus, the so-called civilization is gradually advancing by producing Rakshasas. Yeah, they're killing so many children nowadays. It's terrible. Text 16. Being merciless and cruel, I have forsaken all my relatives and friends. Therefore, like a person who has killed a Brahmana, I do not know to which planet I shall go, either after death or while breathing. Text 17. Daivam api amritam bhakti, and so forth. Alas, not only human beings, but sometimes even providence lies. And I am so sinful that I believe the omen of providence and killed so many of my sister's children. Text 18. O great souls, your children have suffered their own misfortune. Therefore, please do not lament for them. All living entities are under the control of the Supreme, and they cannot always live together. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Kamsa addressed his sister and brother-in-law as Mahabhago because although he killed their ordinary children, the goddess Durga took birth from them because Devaki bore Durga Devi in her womb. Kamsa praised both Devaki and her husband. Asuras are very devoted to the goddess Durga, Kali, and so forth. Kamsa, therefore, truly astonished, appreciated the exalted position of his sister and brother-in-law. Durga is certainly not under the laws of nature, because she herself is the controller of the laws of nature. Ordinary living beings, however, are controlled by these laws. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasa. Consequently, none of us are allowed to live together for any long period. But by speaking in this way, Kamsa tried to pacify his sister and brother-in-law. Text 19. In this world, we can see that pots, dolls, and other products of the earth appear, break, and then disappear, mixing with the earth. Similarly, the bodies of all living entities are annihilated, while the living entities, like the earth itself, are unchanging and never annihilated. Na hanyate hanyamane sarire. Although Kamsa is described as a demon, he had good knowledge of the affairs of Atma Tattva, the truth of the self. 5,000 years ago, there were kings like Kamsa, who is described as an asura, but he was better than the modern politicians and diplomats who have no knowledge about Atma Tattva. As stated in the Vedas, Asango hi ayam punsa. The spirit soul has no connection with the changes of the material body. The body undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, sustenance, byproducts, dwindling, and then annihilation. But the soul undergoes no such changes. Even after the annihilation of the particular body, a bodily form, the original source of the bodily elements does not change. The living entity enjoys the material body, which appears and disappears, but the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, remain the same. The example given here is that pots and dolls are produced from the earth, and when broken or destroyed, they mingle with their original ingredients. In any case, the source of supplying maintains the same. As already discussed, the body is made according to the desires of the soul. The soul desires, and thus the body is formed. Krishna therefore says in Bhagavad Gita 1861, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hridde Sevrajuna Diskate Ramayan Sarvabhutani Yantrarudrani Mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Neither the supersoul, Paramatma, nor the individual soul changed its original spiritual identity. The Atma does not undergo birth, death, or changes like the body. Therefore, a Vedic aphorism saying, Asango hi ayam purusha, although the soul is conditioned, I'm sorry, although the soul is conditioned within this material world, he has no connection with the changes of the material body. Okay. Text 20. One who does not understand the constitutional position of the body and the soul, Atma, becomes too attached to the bodily concept of life. Consequently, because of attachment to the body and its byproducts, he feels affected by the union with and separation from his family, society, and nation. As long as this continues, one continues his material life. Otherwise, one is liberated. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Savai Pumsa Parodharmo, Yato Bhakti Ahoksaje, Haituki Aprahita Yayat Ma Suprasidati. The word dharma means engagement. One who is engaged in the service of the Lord, Yato Bhakti Ahoksaje, without impediment and without cessation, is understood to be situated in his original spiritual status. When one is promoted to this status, one is always happy in transcendental bliss. Otherwise, as long as one is in the bodily concept of life, one must suffer material conditions. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosan Udarshanam. The body is subject to its own principles of birth, death, old age, and disease. But one who is situated in spiritual life, Yato Bhakti Ahoksaje, has no birth, no death, no old age, and no disease. One may argue that we may see a person who is spiritually engaged 24 hours a day, but is still suffering from disease. In fact, however, he is neither suffering nor diseased. Otherwise, he could not be engaged 24 hours a day in spiritual activities. The example may be given in this connection that sometimes a dirty foam or garbage is seen floating on the water of the Ganges. This is called a Nira Dharma, a function of the water. But one who goes to the Ganges does not mind the foam and dirty things floating in the water. With his hand, he pushes away such nasty things, bathes in the Ganges, and gains the benefit of and gains the beneficial results. Therefore, one who is situated in the spiritual status of life is unaffected by foam and garbage or any superficial dirty things. This is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami. Ihayasya Haridasya Karmana Manasa Gira Nikila Swapi Avasta Suru Jivan Mukta Sa Uchite. A person acting in the service of Krishna with his body, mind, and words is a liberated person, even within the material world. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.187. Therefore, one is forbidden to regard the Guru as an ordinary human being. Guru Su Naramatir Naraki Saha. The spiritual master or acharya is always situated in the spiritual status of life. Birth, death, old age, and disease do not affect him. According to the Hari Bhakti Vilasa, therefore, after the disappearance of an acharya, his body is never burnt to ashes, for it is spiritual body. It is a spiritual body. The spiritual body is always unaffected by material conditions. Wow. Hari Bol. Text 21. My dear sister Devaki, all good fortune upon you. Everyone suffers and enjoys the results of his own work under the control of providence. Therefore, although your sons have unfortunately been killed by me, please do not lament for them. Hey, that's asking too much after killing all these children. Purports by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Yastrindra Gopam Atavendram Ahoswakarma Bandhana Rupa Phala Bhajanam Atanuti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Shabakti Bhajan Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajam Aham Bhajami. Everyone, beginning from the small insect known as Indragopa up to Indra, the king of the heavenly planets, is obliged to undergo the results of his fruitive activities. We may superficially see that one is suffering or enjoying because of some external causes, but the real cause is one's own fruitive activities. Even when someone kills someone else, it is to be understood that the person who was killed met the fruitive results of his own work, and that the man who killed him acted as the agent of material nature. Thus, Kamsa begged Devaki's pardon by analyzing the matter deeply. He was not the cause of the death of Devaki's sons. Rather, this was their own destiny. Under the circumstances, Devaki should excuse Kamsa and forget his past deeds. Wow, that's asking a lot. Without lamentation, Kamsa admitted his own fault. But whatever he had done was under the control of providence. Excuse me. Kamsa might have been the immediate cause for the death of Devaki's sons, but the remote cause was their past deeds. This was an actual fact. One second. Text 22. In the bodily conception of life, one remains in darkness without self realization, thinking, I am being killed, or I have killed my enemies. As long as a foolish person thus considers the self to be the killer or the killed, he continues to be responsible for material obligations, and consequently, he suffers the reactions of happiness and distress. By the grace of the Lord comes to felt sincere regret for having unnecessarily persecuted such Vaishnavas as Devaki and Vasudeva. And thus he came to the transcendental stage of knowledge. Purport, because I am situated on the platform of knowledge, Kamsa said, understanding that I am not at all the killer of your sons. I have no responsibility for their death. As long as I thought that I would be killed by your son, I was in ignorance. But now I am free from this ignorance, which was due to a bodily conception of life. Okay, but what about all the dead children? Can't do anything about that. By the grace of the Lord, Kamsa felt sincere regret. Okay, yeah. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 18.17, Yasya na hankrito bhavo buddhir yasya na lipyate hatvapi na sa imalokan na hanti na nibadyate. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, is not the slayer, nor is he bound by actions. According to this axiomatic truth, Kamsa pleaded that he was not responsible for having killed the sons of Devaki and Vasudeva. Please try to excuse me for such false external activities, he said, and be pacified with this same knowledge. Well, that is asking a lot. Let's see what's going to happen now. Text 23. Kamsa begged, my dear sister and brother-in-law, please be merciful to such a poor-hearted person as me, since both you are saintly persons. Please excuse my atrocities. Having said this, Kamsa fell at the feet of Vasudeva and Devaki, his eyes full of tears of regret. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Although Kamsa had spoken very nicely on the subject of real knowledge, his past deeds were abominable and atrocious, and therefore he further begged forgiveness from his sister and brother-in-law by falling at their feet and admitting that he was a most sinful person. Okay, text 24. Fully believing in the words of the goddess Durga, Kamsa exhibited his familial affection for Devaki and Vasudeva by immediately releasing them from their iron shackles. Text 25. When Devaki saw her brother actually repentant while explaining ordained events, she was relieved of all anger. Similarly, Vasudeva, also free from anger, smiling, he spoke to Kamsa as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Devaki and Vasudeva, both highly elevated personalities, accepted the truth presented by Kamsa that everything is ordained by providence. Okay, now this word providence, we've discussed it before. It basically means whatever Krishna wants, what God wants. According to the prophecy, Kamsa would be killed by the eighth child of David. Therefore, Vasudeva and Devaki saw that behind all these incidents was a great plan devised by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because the Lord had already taken birth just like a human child and was in the safe custody of Yasoda. Everything was happening according to plan, and there was no need to continue their ill feeling toward Kamsa. Thus, they accepted Kamsa's words. Okay. Text 26. O great personality, Kamsa, only by the influence of ignorance does one accept the material body and bodily ego. 1 second. Sorry. O great personality, Kamsa, only by the influence of ignorance does one accept the material body and bodily ego. What you have said about the philosophy is correct. Persons in the bodily concept of life, lacking self realization, differentiate in terms of this is mine and this belongs to another. Purport. Everything is done automatically by the law of nature, which work under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no question of doing anything independently. That's a very important statement. Very, very important statement. For one who has put himself in this material atmosphere is fully under the control of nature's laws. Our main business, therefore, should be to get out of this conditioned life and again become situated in spiritual existence. Only due to ignorance does a person think, I am a demigod, I am a human being, I am dog, I am cat, or when the ignorance is still further advanced, I am God. Unless one is fully self realized, one's life of ignorance will continue. Text 27. Let's see, our time is almost finished.
Yes, ma'am.
Or it is finished.
It's 7:40.
Yeah.
We are at time, ma'am.
Okay, I think we'll stop right there. Everything is done automatically by the laws of nature, which work under the direction of the Supreme Personality of God. There is no question of doing anything independently. For one who has put himself in the material, in this material atmosphere, is fully under the control of nature's laws. Our main business, therefore, should be to get out of this conditioned life and again become situated in spiritual existence. Only due to ignorance does a person think, I am God, I am a demigod, I am a human being, I am dog, I am cat, or when the ignorance is still further advanced, I am God. Unless one fully self-realized, unless one is fully self-realized, one's life of ignorance will continue. Okay, that is our takeaway for today. People have these false ideas developed over time due to their ignorance. And they can even do horrible things like we're seeing what the Kamsa is doing. Then they repent, or they try to repent. But Vaishnavas are so let's say, exalted, that they're willing to excuse the horrible activities of demons. So this is somewhat confusing, but we have to understand that there is a plan of Krishna. And this plan has many various, let's say, junctions or very transcendental results. Therefore, we should not be surprised. Rather, we should be overwhelmed by the activities that are taking place under the tutelage or the control of Krishna. Everything that's happening is under the control of Krishna. It is not happening haphazardly or by the demons controlling things. Everything is controlled by the Lord. So the Lord has a plan, and we have to be patient and understand gradually what that plan is, and not to jump to principles that can be false. We have to be very patient and humble and see what what Krishna wants what Krishna wants us to do. That's why it says, only due to ignorance does a person think, I am a demigod, I am a human being, I am a dog, I am a cat. Or when the ignorance is still further advanced, I am God. Unless one is fully self realized, one's life of ignorance will continue. Well, the life of ignorance is continuing big time today, unfortunately. But by the mercy of Krishna, if we're willing to be patient and hear regularly the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll be able to understand our real position in this world. And that's why it says, only due to ignorance does a person think, I am a demigod, I am a human being, I am a dog, I am a cat. Or when the ignorance is still further advanced, I am God. Unless one is fully self realized, one's life of ignorance will continue. Well, it's continuing a lot these days, but we're fortunate to understand what is happening and not be influenced by the ignorance that is taking place. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We will stop there in text and begin on text 27 tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanandi, Harivilas. Thank you very much, my dear devotees. Have a good day. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And don't be fooled by all the